Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Neil Lennon has left the club, John Kennedy is in, and yet our goalkeeper, Vasilis Barkas, still can't get a game for Celtic. So after his latest game spent on the sidelines, well, not even the sidelines, he probably watched the game at home on Saturday. What is the future for the guy we paid £5 million for, and what is the issue? Now, just preempting the swathes of comments I'm going to get from you wonderful people saying, Barkas is crap, mate. Don't stand up for him. Barkas is terrible. He's got small fingers, or small hands. Why would it be small fingers? Small hands. He's a dinosaur. All of that kind of patter. Maybe he does have small fingers, I don't know. I get that. And I know football fans have this thing of making players who aren't currently playing the best players. Now, by that, what I mean is probably over the last 6 months, James Forrest has been Celtic's best player in the eyes of supporters, quite simply because he's not been playing, he's not been associated with this complete car crash of a season. He's become better than probably what he is, and there is a danger it happens with Barkas while he's sitting on the bench, while he's continually been overlooked by first Neil Lennon and now seemingly John Kennedy. There's a danger that we make Barkas out to be this wonderful goalkeeper who's just not getting the breaks at Celtic. I do think he's been poor. I think it's a major issue when you've got a goalkeeper there and you're approaching the end of the season and he's yet to make a save of note. I think that's a major issue. I know he hasn't necessarily made too many errors either, but I think the fact he hasn't winning his points on his own isn't a great sign for a keeper you've spent £5 million on, an international, a player who's played in the Champions League, a player who's won league titles, domestic trophies in his career, a player who's quite experienced as well. So basically what I'm saying is, I'm not saying Barkas is the answer to all our issues. I'm not saying we'd be celebrating 10 in a row if Barkas had been kept in the team this season. I think so many of the issues that are there would still have been there had Barkas been playing. But I think that kind of backs up the point that Barkas isn't the main issue this season either. I think he's one of many issues. But I think rather than criticising Barkas in this video, my main frustrations are going to be aimed at Celtic in general, most notably Neil Lennon. I think the way he treated Barkas this season was pretty shambolic. I'm going to go in depth in that in a wee second, but just to get that out there, if you still want to abuse me in the comments, go for it, it is appreciated, but just remember that. I'm joking, by the way. I like all the comments I get, well, most of them. Okay, Barkas started his time at the club as our number one. He played all those matches in that kind of strange winning run we had, I think about August, September kind of time. He played the Ferencvaros game, didn't cover himself in glory then. The big turning point seemed to happen in the week when we lost to Rangers, the first one that is, and then we get turned over by AC Milan a few days later. Barkas was taken out of the team for the first time, not the last time, after that AC Milan defeat. Memory serves me right, I think Neil Lennon blamed injury on it, but he quickly had Scott Bain in for the 3-3 draw at Aberdeen. Yeah, great move, Neil. That made a massive difference to our defence, shipping 3 goals at Pittodrie. It's almost as if Barkas wasn't the main problem. This is where the numbers come into it. In total, Barkas missed 9 games in that period after the AC Milan, the first AC Milan one. He was then brought in for 3 matches. He was then back out for 5 matches. He was then brought in for a strange couple of games just around the Christmas New Year period, the festive period I believe they call that. He played Dundee United. He also played the defeat at Ibrox. I think it was around this time Neil Lennon said, he's my number one, he's who I'm going to be sticking with. Really good comments from Neil Lennon, really backing his goalkeeper there, great to see. Then Dubai happened, not going into Dubai again, but Barkas was one of the many players forced to self-isolate following Christopher Julian testing positive for COVID-19. That meant that Barkas, like so many others, missed the 2 games at the start of the year. We're talking Hibs 1-1 and we're talking Livingston 0-0. God, those were 2 horrendous matches. He did return for the slightly more entertaining draw against Livingston a few days later, and then that was him. And we've not seen Vasilis Barkas since that. Now, any goalkeeper at any club in world football needs to be valued, needs to feel like he's trusted by his manager, and he also needs to have some sort of a settled defence in front of him. You look at the complete and utter failure Liverpool have been over the last few months, and so much of that stems from the fact that their defence has continually been changing. I know that's been, enforced on them with injuries to the likes of Gomez and Van Dijk, and I know I'm sounding a bit like Neil Lennon trying to, link Celtic and Liverpool, but it is true that you're struggling when you don't have a settled backline in front of you as a goalkeeper. You've not got a lot to build on, and Barkas hasn't had that all season. He hasn't been trusted by his manager all season. He hasn't felt probably confident of his place all season. He's been in, he's been out, he's been in, he's been out, he's been shaking it all about. He's been everywhere, Vasilis Barkas, apart from being a regular Celtic player. So is he injured at the moment? That seems to be the general thought from supporters, but there's actually no evidence to either approve or disprove that. And the kind of sad fact is, the frustrating fact is that nobody's asked Neil Lennon or John Kennedy what the situation is with Barkas. So, like so much of Celtic this season, we're just kind of left putting together pieces, trying to join, 2 and 2 together to get 5 or whatever, not quite getting the full picture, but not being told the picture by anyone at the club. Is he injured? Seems a little bit unlikely that he would be injured in training. He, of all players, would be injured in training because he was in the matchday squad the first game against Aberdeen a fortnight ago, and hasn't been in the matchday squad for either of the last 2 games. So it seems a little bit of a coincidence that Barkas would suddenly be injured. Has he been geared away for a move in the summer? Possibly. Are Celtic giving him the rest of the season off to acclimatise to Glasgow with no pressure on him? I really hope that's not the scenario, because I think with the pressure virtually off for the rest of this season, we're not playing for anything between now and the end of the season. Everyone just wants the season to be over. I think it would be a great opportunity to give Barkas a run in the team. Let's finally see if the guy is good or not. I know so many people have written him off already, and to a certain extent I get that, because he's not given us anything to suggest he could be a good Celtic goalkeeper. But equally, I've not seen enough bad stuff from him to tell me that he's a complete write-off as a player. I would love to see him getting a good run in the team with a settled defence in front of him. I think for the first time this season, we look like we've maybe got a bit of a settled defence. I know there's Greg Taylor, who's injured at the moment, but apart from that, we're starting to get a settled defence. I would love to see Barkas in there as well between now and the end of the season. Listen, if he's a complete dud and he makes loads of mistakes, we can write it off. We can probably get some money back for him in the summer. But I would like to see us give him one more shot, a proper run of games, to see what he can do. People do forget that there were big questions being asked of Fraser Forster in his first spell at the club a decade ago. I remember everyone saying, this guy doesn't come and collect crosses, he isn't commanding enough for his height and his frame. And then look at the success he went on to be. There's numerous examples at other clubs. David De Gea is an obvious one, but there's also examples of goalkeepers who start slowly and never really get it back. So I just think right now we've got an ideal opportunity to give Barkas a run of games, and I really hope that if he is injured at the moment, that we can see him for the last 5 or 6 games of the season to really see what he's all about. In terms of next season, I think going to the 2 extremes, Barkas either has to be our number 1 under a new manager and have that confidence of a new manager and a fresh start at the club, or he has to be away from the club. I don't see any in-between that we can go for. I don't see how we could make Barkas our number 2 next season, or, God forbid, have him doing what he's done this season and playing 2 games, then missing 3, then playing 4, then missing 5. I think it has to be either full faith in him to be our number 1 next season under a new manager, which isn't inconceivable. But I think in the other end of the scale, if a new manager comes in and isn't completely sold on him, I think we need to look to get him away from the club, whether that's selling him or loaning him with an option to sell further down the line. It's a lot of money to write off, I know, £5 million, but if it's that, a choice between having that or having Barkas just, sticking around and not really knowing his place and all the uncertainty that has, then I know what I would choose.